something woke me up. And there at the end of my bed was a face. I have to say that I was a little bit afraid and uneasy because you don't know if you're dreaming or if someone's standing in your room.
I felt something. A presence, no, who knows what a presence is? That means nothing. I felt electric. I didn't want to, and I was scared, but I turned around, and as I did, I knew that ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, at that point I knew they existed.
Neutral. I was pretty neutral. I had no strong opinions that ghosts didn't exist or you couldn't see any sort of vision from another world or from your past or your ancestors. But I didn't have any point of reference. I didn't have any personal experiences prior to that, so I wouldn't have said with any strong opinion that I'm a believer or I'm a non-believer.
Never ever gave it much of a thought, to tell you the truth. And I thought that when I did hear about it, I wouldn't give it much credence because I was similar to my dad. Nah, can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it, it's not real.
Sometimes the headlines make it seem that all of life is a battle between good and evil. At times like that, we're grateful for the safety and security of our homes. But what if the battlefield was in your home? What if you were caught in the crossfire between light and darkness? I am Lawrence Chow. Today in Ghostly Encounters, we meet Monique Perot and Rob Timoshenko. Monique and Rob didn't give much thought to ghosts before they moved into their dream home. But before long, they seemed to be seeing two different and conflicting sides of a spiritual world they didn't know existed. And their views and their lives were about to change radically.
We wanted to start a family, and we were living at the time, we had lived in Toronto for a few years, and we wanted to get out of the downtown, out of the city.
It was beautiful wooded ravine lot, just with the Credit River Valley below my picture window. I couldn't ask for more. It was beautiful. You could fish, you could canoe.
We didn't have to renovate, really. It just had 2 bedrooms and a nice big living room. Big kitchen that if I had had my dreams, I would have redone, but only because it was so much potential.
Yeah, it was very nice. I wish I actually hung on to that property, but when things got out of control, not out of control, but just beyond the point where we were comfortable, we decided to let's just walk away from this.
It was 1984. I was pregnant with our first child, Nicole. Things had been going along just fine, but I had just a bit of a problem in the pregnancy, minor problem, everyday occurrence apparently, and I was told to stay off my feet for a couple of days, just take it easy. I was a little nervous, first pregnancy, so it wasn't an easy time, but I was asleep in my bed. And something woke me up. And there at the end of my bed was a face. And it was my grandfather's face. And it was a very strange experience. I have to say that I was a little bit afraid and uneasy because you don't know if you're dreaming or if someone's standing in your room before you realize that there's no other part, it's just the face. And then it was gone. I mean, it's not 5 seconds and the image is gone, but you know that you were awake. You know what you saw. all I could feel was comforted, or that everything's okay. You know, this wasn't some horrible, evil thing that I saw. It was my grandfather. Just that closed-mouthed smile, looking down, kind of calm, as if he knew something I didn't. In this time when I was having difficulty in the pregnancy, there was actually someone looking out for me. And it was a beautiful feeling. And that was the first time that I ever saw or felt anything that I could say was from another world, from the past, from a ghost, from a vision of any sort. Well, after Nicole was born, that's when things for me started really picking up. I would be downstairs in the kitchen. I would be cooking, Nicole would be sleeping in her crib, and we would all of a sudden hear footsteps. Definite, very definite footsteps. And they would follow a pattern and go across the living room, into the little hallway, and right into the baby room.
I can recall sitting at the table one night with Monique, hearing these footsteps and looking at her and going, "Did you hear that?" And that was the first time that we really acknowledged.
That was, I agree, that was the first thing that we could both say, we both heard, we both felt, and we didn't have to wait and compare notes. So the first few times I know that we were very concerned, and we would go upstairs and check. And Nicole would be sleeping in her room, and everything would be fine. And there was no one in the house but us. There were times when I would hear not only the footsteps, I would hear the mobile start. There were times when I would hear not only the footsteps, I would hear the mobile start. And it wouldn't just start and go for a couple of seconds. The mobile would start and run for a minute or more, as if there was someone getting the baby to go back to sleep again. That unnerved us. That was starting to get where I was starting to feel like something's, he's getting a little too close to my child. At some point, I finally had to relax and say, okay, they're here to stay. And I have to share this house with someone else. So, get used to it. We were painting the baby room, and we found some unusual things underneath the wallpaper.
I was confused as to why the walls were painted so strange. At the bottom was brown, and then there was a strip of green, and there was some blue, and there was some white, and then there was blood red at the top.
We didn't know what it meant then.
I opened the phone book. Now this could happen. I went down. I did phone a local painter.
When he arrived to give us an estimate, he was a little surprised as well, because he had painted that house before. His second or third time to paint the house, and he had told us that the man who had owned the house for many years, that he was a judge and that he believed he was going to hell.
He had said, when I die, I want to be looking up from earth, which is brown, to the grass, which is green, to the sky, which is blue, through the clouds, which is heaven, into hell, which is red. And sure enough, he died in that front room, convinced he was going to hell. It's kind of creepy. Perhaps it was because he made a lot of tough decisions in his days. He sent some innocent people to jail, or possibly to the gallows.
The judge in his macabre paint job changed Monique and Rob's reactions to the earlier incidents. Was the judge responsible for the footsteps and the moving mobile in their daughter's room? Was a creature of darkness stalking their only child? There was no time to answer that before chilling events in the laundry room complicated their lives even more.
I hung a lot of laundry there. I did cloth diapers for my daughter, so I did a lot of laundry. And I would be hanging clothes on the line. And I often felt a hand on my shoulder. I would be doing laundry, and I often felt a hand on my shoulder. And I could feel the pressure, and I remember jumping, thinking that I was alone in the house and that Rob must be home or someone had come into the house. And it was most often when I reached up to put the clothes on the line. I was pinning clothes on the clothesline. And that's when I would feel the hand on my shoulder. So I shrugged it off, thought maybe I was, again, needed more sleep. But it happened again and again.
I never felt comfortable in that room. Every time I went to change a fuse, I would swear I had the feeling that someone was watching me, or there was someone in that room. One day I was changing the fuses.
So he went into the room, and I believe he had to get a chair or a ladder. It was not in an easy location. And as he climbed up, he had to put his hand for balance on one of the structural beams. And when he put his hand on the beam,
I thought it was odd. I felt maybe it was a screw. I reached up, I pulled it out, and it was a ring. And it was an antique ring. It was obvious. It was antique. And I showed Monique and said, well, what do you think we should do with it?
I wasn't sure if we should take it down from its spot. To leave it there, it just seemed strange. I know he lost his wife. The man who built and lived in the house for many years lost his wife. So I have no idea if he had the ring and left it there one day, or perhaps they lost it, didn't realize they left it there, never, ever, ever found it. And we did. But the interesting coincidence is that the ring is my birthstone. And I explained it to myself that she must have been in there and spent time in there quite a bit like I did. And that was maybe a spot where they bumped into each other often in the house. But then you can take it anywhere. You can totally turn the story around and go back to the beginning and say, was that my grandfather? From the very beginning, I saw my grandfather when I was pregnant with Nicole. Then we had the footsteps into the baby room. Then we had the mobile going. Then this feeling all the time of this hand on my shoulder when I did laundry. Maybe it's about taking care of Nicole, the things that I saw and felt. But for me, it was all positive. A little unnerving, but nothing horrible. And I think for Rob, the experiences were different.
I got to the point where, okay, if there's someone in my house, I want to know. I would run up the steps and say, I know you're here. I know there's someone here. Why don't you come out and show me? Big mistake. I would not recommend this to anybody. Well, one night, Monique was in bed, and we had a small acorn fireplace, and I was watching the fire burn down, closing the lights, getting ready for bed. And I felt something. A presence, no, who knows what a presence is. That means nothing. I felt electric, tingly, hair standing up, feeling like you're being watched. I knew someone was behind me at this point. And this thing, this presence, this ghost, moved towards me. And at that point, every single nerve, hair in my body was just standing up. And he touched me, right on his shoulder. He wanted me to turn around. I didn't want to, and I was scared, but I turned around, and as I did, I knew that ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, at that point I knew they existed. I didn't want to, and I was scared, but I turned around, and as I did, I saw a figure with a black face, no distinguishable facial features, wearing a fedora, slightly cocked to one side, dressed in long flowing robes. Long flowing robes. I didn't see the Grim Reaper. I saw a judge. He wanted me to see him because I had been talking to him. And then I looked away and he was gone. At that point, I knew that ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, at that point, I knew they existed. And I was scared. I didn't want to walk past. To get to the bedroom, I had to walk past where he was. And it took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes to get the courage to walk past that point into the bedroom, wake up my wife, and say, I just saw the ghost. I was very upset at that point. Very upset. I think he was trying to tell me that I wasn't the only one living in this house. And I didn't like that.
I think that's when we started talking about leaving, about selling the house and getting out of there, because I know that Rob was unnerved by it.
We decided that we were not going to raise our daughter, our family there. We decided it wasn't the right thing to do. It's had an enormous effect on my beliefs. Life continues in another way, in another world, in another form.
I guess you'd say I'm a believer in that there's an ability to communicate some way or form. So now if someone were to tell me a story like what I just told you, I would believe them, most definitely, without questioning it. And I just know that they're not ghost stories. They're real.
He said, she said. Same story, two different angles. Monique sees her experiences in the house as all positive. She believes her grandfather's ghost is a force for good. Rob's reaction is very different. He sees an intrusive evil spirit in the midst of his family. After his confrontation with what he believes is the judge's ghost, he's convinced that the house isn't a safe place to raise his daughter. The judge's paint job suggests that he may have been a Freemason, part of a worldwide society that uses secret rites and mysterious symbols. One series of symbols shows a journey upward through different forms of existence to a supreme being. The judge's paint job with hell at the top could be a perverse version of this. Rob and Monique no longer felt safe, and so they left their house, its eerie paint job, and whatever ghosts might go with it.
There's a presence out there. We don't always see it. And that presence may be around us all of the time, but we don't have to see it to believe it. And I would hope that people could be open-minded, that if they felt something or saw something, that they could take it and try to turn it into the positive. What are you going to take away from it? And just know that there are people, and I would say there's probably someone looking out for every single one of us out there. I believe that.
Don't be so sure that you have all the answers, because you don't. No one has the answers. We'll only find out when we pass on. But you know what? It makes me... I want to live a full and happy life, but it makes me curious as to what's going to happen to me when I pass on.